He looked like just another homeless man. Sleeping under a bridge. Limping through alleys. Until a cop slammed him on the hood. And everything started to unravel. But the cop didn't know. The man he beat wasn't just homeless. He was sent to expose them. It was 2:17 p.m. Sun blazing down on cracked pavement near the corner of Jefferson Avenue and 14th Street, a block where no one made eye contact and everyone walked faster. A black man in his late 40s sat on a curb, hunched over, holding a half-eaten sandwich in a napkin. His clothes were dusty. Hair overgrown. His fingers trembled slightly from dehydration. People passed him without looking. One woman crossed the street. A delivery guy shook his head. To everyone watching, he was just another unhoused man wasting daylight. But under the dirt was Agent Nathaniel Briggs, deep undercover in an ongoing federal investigation called Operation Sweeplight, targeting a rising pattern of abuse from officers in the city's 14th precinct. His appearance was a disguise. His cracked boots held a hidden mic. And every hour he spent on this sidewalk was logged and monitored by a quiet team 4 blocks away. But what happened next, no one saw coming. A police cruiser rolled up slowly. Marked unit. No lights. Just a slow crawl and a long stare from the officer in the driver's seat. The cop stepped out. White male, 30s. Fit. Confident. Name tag, Myers. Hey. You been sittin' here all day? Briggs looked up slowly. Just resting, sir. Resting? Looks like loitering to me. He motioned for Briggs to stand. Briggs rose carefully, might still live. Myers glanced around. No civilians' clothes. No cameras visible. What's in your pocket? Just my ID, Briggs replied quietly. Let me see it. Briggs reached slowly, too slowly for Myers, apparently. Suddenly, the officer grabbed his wrist, twisted him around, and shoved him chest first onto the hood of the cruiser. Hands behind your back. Stop resisting. I'm not resisting. Too late. A hard shove to the lower back. The sandwich hit the pavement. A knee pressed into Briggs's spine. Pedestrians began to stop. Someone across the street pulled out a phone. And back at the federal van monitoring his wire, a tech's eyes widened. We've got an incident. Briggs winced against the heat of the car's metal, his face turned toward the sunlight, jaw clenched. He came to watch abuse. He didn't expect to survive it. Briggs sat on the curb again. His ribs burned. His shirt stuck to dried blood under his armpit. He hadn't said a word since they let him go. No charges. No paperwork. Just a shove off the hood and a warning. You hang around here again, I won't be so nice. The officer, Myers, didn't even file the encounter. Not a single report. That silence told Briggs everything. This wasn't the first time. And it wouldn't be the last. He walked, slowly, for blocks to a public bench near the library and slumped there, breathing shallow. The sun was too bright. His vision swam. He didn't call backup. Didn't activate the emergency signal in his boot. He needed to stay in. Stay broken. Stay believable. If Myers thought for 1 second that the homeless guy had power, the whole operation would collapse. That night, a kid maybe 11 or 12 walked by him holding a bag of fries. He paused. You okay, man? Briggs nodded faintly. You want this? The kid asked, holding the bag. Briggs took it with a nod. Thank you. They messed you up pretty bad. Yeah. Was it the guy with the buzz cut? Why you asking? 'Cause he did that to my uncle last month. Broke his wrist. Said he resisted. My uncle was just walking home. Briggs stared at him. You got a name, kid? The boy shook his head. Don't worry about it. And walked off. Inside Briggs's head, a map was forming. Victims weren't just unhoused. They were anyone who couldn't fight back. And this wasn't about one bad cop. It was about a culture that knew how to bury pain, in silent precincts and forgotten sidewalks. Across the street, Myers cruised by again. This time, he didn't stop. Just rolled slow enough to let Briggs see the grin behind the windshield. A quiet message. You're still nothing. Briggs clenched his jaw. Not for long, he whispered. But even he didn't know just how deep this would go. 3 days passed. Briggs didn't sleep. Not well, anyway. Each night, he took shelter behind an auto shop dumpster where the alley cameras had blind spots. That was by design, those were the places he'd heard whispers about. It wasn't just brutality. It was the where and how that told the Real story. Always alone. Always off record. Always people no one believed when they cried for help. On the 4th day, Briggs heard it. A shout. A metallic thud. Then the unmistakable voice of Officer Myers. You think you can spit on me? Another voice, shaky, maybe teenage, begged, I didn't. I swear I didn't, man. Briggs stood up slowly from the alley shadows, leaning around the corner. A Latino teen, no older than 16, was backed against the hood of a parked car, his arms up in the air. No weapon. No backup. Just Myers, red-faced, jaw clenched, baton in hand. Briggs didn't move closer. Didn't intervene. He pulled his sleeve down and gently tapped his forearm. The transmitter kicked in. The audio would hit federal servers in seconds. You think your smart mouth's gonna get you out of this? Crack. The baton came down, once, twice. The boy screamed. Briggs stepped back into the alley, breathing hard. Not yet, he whispered. He couldn't break cover. Not for one boy. Not if he wanted the whole system to be exposed. But his fists were shaking. 2 minutes later, a different cruiser pulled up. Another officer stepped out, older, more controlled. That's enough, Myers. We'll write him up and send him home. Myers looked annoyed. You didn't see what he did. The second cop looked at the boy, bleeding, sobbing. I don't need to. Later, Briggs watched from a bus stop bench as the teen limped down the street, holding his ribs. He looked back once. Their eyes met, just for a second. Briggs gave the faintest nod. The boy nodded back, confused, and kept walking. The mic had done its job. But Briggs? He felt like a coward. And that was the part no one prepared him for. The file landed in a folder marked Urgent, Civilian Incident 08. The audio wasn't perfect, a bit of wind, some distortion. But the screams were clear. The baton strikes. The officer's voice shouting, you think your smart mouth's gonna get you out of this? The task force lead, Agent Voss, clicked her pen once and leaned back in her chair. That's him again. Myers. Same name that had come up in 2 unsustained complaints, one sealed internal affairs report, and a long-ignored voicemail from a nurse at St. Clara ER. But this time, it wasn't hearsay. This time, they had proof. But proof wasn't enough. They needed patterns. Evidence of coordination. Other officers looking away. Supervisors staying silent. They needed rot, not just a splinter. And until then, Briggs had to stay under. Back on the streets, Briggs shuffled into a food pantry line. It was Wednesday. They handed out water bottles and soft bread. A volunteer behind the table, college-aged, soft-spoken, recognized him. Hey, you okay, sir? I saw that video. You were on the hood, right? Briggs blinked. What video? The kid looked guilty. Someone across the street filmed it. It's been going around Reddit, TikTok. Some are calling it the curb cop clip. That wasn't good. If it went viral too fast, Myers would be warned. The department would go into damage control. Delete it if you can, Briggs said softly. What? Nothing. Briggs took the water and moved on. That afternoon, a patrol car cruised by again. Different cop this time, female, mid-40s, stern. She didn't stop. Just looked hard at him. A slow pass. Like a warning. They're starting to notice me, he whispered. Which meant one thing, time was running out. At sunset, he sat on the steps of a shut-down laundromat. He pulled a crumpled page from his pocket, a list of addresses he'd memorized. 5 locations. 5 alleys. 5 cleanup zones where victims said they'd been roughed up and left behind. He circled the last one. Tomorrow, he'd go there. Alone. He didn't know. Someone was already waiting. 9:08 a.m. Clear skies. Bus fumes hung in the air. Briggs stood across from Lot C, a long-abandoned city parking lot boxed in by rusted fencing and a shuttered check-cashing office. According to 4 complaints filed over the past 2 years, Lot C was where people got lost. Picked up off the street. Dropped off with bruises. No cameras. No paperwork. Today, Briggs would walk straight into it. He didn't go in fast. He circled first. Noted a city camera pole that had no actual lens. Logged a brown car parked too long with fogged windows. Counted 3 exits, 1 freshly sealed with caution tape. Still being used, he whispered. He entered the lot like any other unhoused man, limping, quiet, looking for shade. In the back corner, a figure shifted. Another homeless man, or so it seemed. But something was off. The guy was clean. Too clean. His shoes were department issue. Belt too tight for street life. They made eye contact. Held it. Briggs sat down under the shade of a crumbling wall. 30 minutes passed. Nothing. Then the man stood, cracked his back, and walked toward him. Hot one today, the man said casually. Briggs didn't answer. You from around here? I'm not looking for conversation. The man smiled, just a little too long. Then maybe stop sniffing where you don't belong. Briggs froze. The man leaned in. No badge, no uniform. But the message was clear. He wasn't random. He was a handler. The kind they used to deliver warnings. By noon, Briggs was back on a curb near the school district's maintenance building, jaw locked, knuckles white. He'd just been marked. They're watching me now, he muttered under his breath. He clicked the mic in his boot twice, an urgent signal. From a quiet van blocks away, Agent Voss got the ping. He's compromised. But pulling him out now meant losing everything. She didn't answer. Briggs drank warm water and closed his eyes for 5 seconds. He couldn't trust the cops. He couldn't trust the street. Even his own people were going silent. He was alone. Exactly where they wanted him. The next morning, Briggs didn't move for nearly an hour. He sat hunched under the pedestrian bridge near Whitman Street, surrounded by the hum of city buses and joggers with earbuds who didn't even glance in his direction. His back was stiff. His mouth dry. But worse than pain was the silence in his earpiece. No contact. No signal. Nothing from his team. Not since the warning at Lot C. He'd gone undercover before, cartel cases, border stings, but this? This was different. This wasn't about chasing a product or a transaction. This was about power hiding behind routine. Behind badges and forms and silence. And now that power was watching him. At 10:43 a.m., a patrol SUV rolled up to the gas station across the street. Briggs didn't turn his head, but he saw the reflection in the bus stop glass. Officer Myers stepped out. Calm. Relaxed. Coffee in one hand, radio mic in the other. He stood outside the vehicle for a long time, just watching traffic. Then slowly, deliberately, he looked across the street, directly at Briggs. And smiled. That same grin. The one that said, "I know who you're pretending to be. But I still own this street." Briggs didn't flinch. Didn't blink. He simply reached down and picked up an empty coffee cup beside him and threw it in the trash, a small act of control. Of dignity. But inside, his chest was boiling. That afternoon, he limped to a local shelter to charge his tracker and eat something warm. A volunteer recognized him. "They're talking about you," she whispered over a bowl of soup. "Who?" "The cops. The tough ones. They say you're nosy. They're calling you Ghost." "Ghost? Like, you're not real. Like you don't belong here." Briggs stirred his spoon in silence. She leaned in. "I don't know who you are, but be careful. They think you're watching them." He didn't answer. He just nodded once and got up, leaving half the soup behind. Later that night, sitting under the edge of a delivery dock, Briggs scribbled something on a torn flyer. A name. A date. A time. It wasn't a confession. It wasn't a report. It was a warning, just in case he didn't make it to the end. He folded the paper and tucked it deep inside the seam of his boot. "If they come for me, let the truth come anyway." Briggs coughed into his sleeve, a deep, rattling sound. He hadn't eaten since the shelter. His ribs ached worse each morning, and the bruises along his back had darkened into deep purple. He could feel them every time he breathed. Still, he moved. Pain meant he was alive. And alive meant the mission wasn't over. He sat across from Jameson Elementary, near the loading dock where deliveries came every Wednesday. He'd chosen the spot carefully. It was one of the cleanup zones, places where known incidents happened but no one filed reports. He watched. For 2 hours. A white delivery truck came and went. A janitor smoked a cigarette. A group of kids laughed by the fence. Then, just before noon, a police car pulled into the alley beside the school. Not Myers this time. 2 different officers. 1 male. 1 female. They weren't responding to a call, no sirens, no urgency. Just slow rolling. Looking. Briggs leaned back against the metal pole of the school zone sign, sunglasses hiding his eyes. The cruiser stopped. Both doors opened. "You again," the male officer said, approaching. Briggs didn't move. "Loitering near a school now? That's not smart." "I'm just sitting, man." "You got ID?" "Nope." The officer stepped closer. Hand near his belt. The female cop stood behind him, arms folded. Briggs reached down slowly and picked up the book beside him, something he'd found in the trash behind the shelter, The Old Man and the Sea. "Just reading," he said. The officer stared at him. "You like games, huh?" Briggs said nothing. "You think people don't talk? We know what you're doing. You think you're watching us?" Still silence. "You're not the first guy who thought he could outsmart the department. You know where he is now?" Briggs didn't answer. The officer leaned in. "Nobody does." He backed off. Then, they left. No report. No name. Just a message. "We see you." That night, Briggs lay on his side in the alley behind the corner store, watching the moon through a broken drainpipe. He clicked his mic once. "They know." The earpiece crackled. A voice finally came through. "We need one more piece, Briggs. Just one. Then we pull you. Briggs didn't respond. He just closed his eyes. One more day. One more wound. One more risk. The sun was sharp overhead, burning through thin clouds. Briggs sat behind the Civic Center parking garage, sorting through a trash bag of clothes dumped by a donation truck. A man needed to blend in. But now, he also needed to survive. He'd stopped sleeping. His skin itched from sweat and dried blood. His stomach twisted with hunger, but worse was the paranoia, the feeling that every cruiser slowing down was for him. Because maybe, it was. Mid-afternoon, he made his way to a quiet bench behind the probation office. It was tucked between a row of untrimmed bushes, out of sight. He needed 5 minutes of stillness. That's when he saw her. Officer Danvers. The female cop from the school confrontation. This time, she wasn't in a cruiser. She was walking alone, off-duty, coffee in hand, phone tucked between shoulder and ear. She stopped 5 feet from him. Hung up. Looked down. "You look worse every day," she said. Briggs didn't speak. "You're not like the others. I see it. But I don't know what your angle is." Still silence. "You're not a junkie. Not a drunk. You're just, here. Watching. Like you're waiting for something." Briggs squinted in the light. "What do you want?" "To warn you. That thing with Myers. Don't let it get to your head. He's not the only one who plays rough. And some of them don't stop at warnings." Briggs looked at her, tired. "Then why are you telling me?" "Because this place is rotting from the inside. And if you are who I think you are." She paused. Looked around. "Be careful. They'll bury you." She turned and walked off. Just like that. Later that evening, Briggs watched as a fight broke out near the shelter. 2 teens. One with a pipe. One bleeding. Sirens came fast. 3 cruisers. 4 cops. One of them, Myers. He didn't even go for the teens. He made a beeline for Briggs, who stood across the street, watching. "You again." Briggs didn't move. "You like standing around, huh? Watching people get hurt. You want to see what hurt really looks like?" He got closer. Too close. "Go ahead. Hit that mic," Myers whispered. "You think it scares me?" Briggs blinked. "You already did your worst. I'm still here." Myers smiled. "Not yet." He backed away as another officer called his name. Briggs stood alone on the corner, fists trembling. Tomorrow, he'd walk into the lion's den. Not to get revenge. To get the proof. Even if it broke him. Friday. Noon. Briggs stood outside the precinct itself. Not on the sidewalk across the street. Not tucked behind a bus stop. Right in front. He leaned against the concrete planter, hands in his coat pockets. Sweat clung to his back despite the cool breeze. People went in and out, cops, clerks, janitors. Some stared. Most ignored him. He wasn't looking for a fight. He was bait. Inside his boot, the mic was live. But this time, something new was transmitting too, a thin fiber cam, clipped to a button and barely visible. A backup team in an unmarked van 2 blocks away was watching in real time. "We're on," Agent Voss said. "Final pass. Don't blow it." Briggs waited nearly 30 minutes. Then the glass doors swung open, and out stepped Officer Myers, jaw clenched, phone in hand. He froze when he saw Briggs. Laughed. Shook his head. "Man, you don't learn, do you?" Briggs said nothing. "You camping out now? What is this, some protest? Some attention thing?" Still silence. What's your game, huh? You recording something? Myers stepped in. Too close. Go ahead. Say it. Call internal affairs. Tell him I hit you. I'll say you lunged. I'm just standing here, Briggs replied calmly. Not for long. Myers looked around. The sidewalk was clear. No civilians near. He grabbed Briggs by the collar. You want to be a problem? Let's go solve it inside. Briggs didn't resist. Let himself be dragged around the side of the building toward the parking bay, where body cams were known to mysteriously glitch. Every step made his heart hammer. Not from fear, but because the line between cover and collapse was blurring. The van team saw it all. Don't move yet, Voss said. Let it play. He's taking him off camera, a tech warned. We need it on record. In the alley, Myers shoved Briggs against the wall, just out of view. You really think I don't know what you are? Briggs breathed out slow. Then you already messed up. What did you say? Briggs looked him in the eye, steady, quiet. You should have left me on the bench. In the van, Voss's voice came sharp. Move in. Now. Freeze. Step back. Hands where we can see them. The alley lit up with red and blue strobe. Unmarked units. Plain clothes agents. 4 figures moved in fast, weapons drawn, not for Briggs, but for Myers. The officer's grip loosened. What the hell is this? Hands on the wall. Now. Myers hesitated. For one split second, he looked at Briggs. Confused. Like the ground had tilted under him. He's a fake. He's not who he says. On the wall, one of the agents barked again. Briggs stepped aside, chest heaving. Myers was cuffed. Not arrested. Just, detained. Long enough for internal affairs to finally review everything. The footage. The audio. The sealed records that kept accident reports off the books. The complaints that were lost during processing. Briggs didn't speak. He didn't have to. The data spoke louder than words ever could. Inside the precinct, news spread fast. Desks went quiet. One officer stood. Walked out. Didn't come back. Another picked up a phone, stared at it for a long time, and slowly dialed internal affairs, voluntarily. It was happening. Not loud. Not dramatic. But like rot in the floor finally surfacing, boards buckling under weight that had been there for years. Briggs sat alone in a gray room 2 floors above the holding cells. A medic taped gauze over his ribs. He didn't ask for it. He didn't say thank you. He just stared at the wall. It's over, the medic asked. Briggs shook his head. No. Now it starts. Later, Agent Voss walked in. Dropped a manila folder on the table. You cracked it open. Everything Myers touched, we're digging up. Briggs didn't look at her. How many complaints total? 12. 5 dismissed. 3 sealed. 4 never filed. He closed his eyes. And how many of them were like me? Too many. He stood up. His back cracked. His legs shook slightly. I need 48 hours. To rest? Voss asked. To be invisible again. Outside, civilians passed by the precinct. None of them noticed the black man slipping quietly into a faded hoodie, limping past the fence like just another shadow in daylight. He'd exposed a system. But the wounds it left still bled quietly. 2 days later. Briggs sat in the corner booth of a half-empty diner on 9th Street. A fresh shirt. Same jeans. Same limp. He sipped burnt coffee and watched the door. He didn't want a debrief. Didn't need praise. He just wanted to know if any of it mattered. Agent Voss arrived late. Sat across from him. No suit this time, just a hoodie and a tired face. Myers took a deal. Briggs didn't react. They won't press charges. Just internal dismissal. He walks. Technically. Of course. Briggs turned to the window. Outside, a city worker sprayed down the sidewalk with a hose. He'll be gone, Voss added. But the others won't. She didn't deny it. The doorbell above the diner chimed. Briggs's shoulders tensed, but it was just a group of construction workers coming in for lunch. He breathed out. I had a name list, he said. You remember? Yeah. All real victims. Confirmed. Some willing to talk now. One's already giving a deposition. He stirred his coffee. You want back in? Voss asked. No. You sure? You're the only reason this cracked. That's exactly why I'm out. Briggs stood, slid a napkin across the table, a name scribbled in pen. This one wasn't on the list. Who is it? A kid. Tried to give me fries the day after I got slammed on a hood. Said Myers broke his uncle's wrist. We'll check it. Briggs nodded. Walked out the door. Outside, everything looked the same. Same cracked curbs. Same noise. Same ignored corners. But something was different inside Briggs. Not relief. Not pride. Something heavier. A truth that even victory couldn't clean. He passed by a pair of beat cops talking near their cruiser. One glanced his way, stiffened slightly. Briggs kept walking. No badge. No backup. Just a man who knew too much. About what gets left behind. Briggs moved into a low-rent room above a tire shop off East Grant. No kitchen. A flickering hallway light. The kind of place you never bring company. But he wasn't planning on company. He stayed off the grid. No earpiece. No backup. Just notebooks. He filled them slowly. Quietly. Names of people who approached him on the street. Stories they whispered after looking both ways. There was Mr. Alves, limped for months after a resisting charge near a bus terminal. And Sheila Mendez, lost her job after filing a complaint that vanished before it reached IA. A teenage girl named Key, who said Myers used to follow her bus route home. The faces were new. The pattern wasn't. Briggs started mailing sealed envelopes. Not to Voss. Not to the department. But to journalists. Community lawyers. Local school boards. If the system wanted silence, he'd scatter the truth wide enough that somebody would hear it. One day, while crossing 5th and Mallory, he ran into the kid again, the one who gave him fries. Same hoodie. A little taller now. Still watching the world like it owed him a reason. Hey, the kid said. You good now? Briggs hesitated. Yeah. You weren't just some homeless guy, were you? Briggs smiled faintly. I was, enough of one. My uncle's still messed up. They never paid him. Nobody ever even apologized. Briggs nodded slowly. I know. You gonna fix that? He didn't answer right away. I'm not a cop anymore. So what are you? Someone who remembers. The kid handed him a folded paper. They started this page. Victims talking. You should be on it. Briggs tucked the paper in his coat. They didn't shake hands. Didn't hug. They just understood. And the kid walked off. That night, Briggs opened the paper. It wasn't flashy. Just a single sentence at the top. Stories they tried to erase. Under it, dozens of names, small photos, and voice memos. Briggs stared for a long time. Then finally hit record. My name isn't important. But this is what they did. It started slow. An anonymous recording on a website no one had heard of. Then two more, from different voices. Different cities. Same patterns. No news cameras. No viral wave. Just a quiet digital thread pulling at a much larger fabric. Briggs watched it happen from the corner of a public library, logged in on a shared desktop. He never used his name. He didn't need to. People recognized the story. Not because it was extraordinary. But because it was familiar. One post read. This sounds like what happened to my brother in Philly. Another. Same thing happened in Baton Rouge. Cop never even got written up. And another. I thought I was the only one. By the end of the week, a local news station picked it up. Not because of Briggs. Because of a mother whose son had been hospitalized by Myers 2 years earlier, and was now brave enough to go on air. The floodgates didn't burst. But they creaked open. Enough to matter. Meanwhile, Myers. He left town. No official charges. No trial. Just a resignation and a recommendation. Briggs saw it on a press release taped outside the precinct window. Printed in neutral language like. Officer chose to step away from duties. And. Committed to departmental reflection and progress. Briggs didn't tear it down. Didn't shout. He just stood there for a while. Then turned away. That night, he returned to his room above the tire shop. The bulb in the hallway still flickered. He sat on the floor, opened his notebook, and crossed one name off the list. Then added two more. A knock came at the door. It wasn't Voss. It was a young woman in a hoodie. You don't know me, but someone said you listen. Briggs motioned to the chair. Tell me what happened. She did. Voice trembling. Hands fidgeting. Briggs didn't write anything. Just nodded. Listened. Let the silence be louder than the pain. He wasn't undercover anymore. But the job wasn't over. Not until every forgotten voice was heard. 3 months later. The bench outside the community center was freshly painted. A small plaque sat on the wall behind it, nothing flashy. Just a name and a phrase. For those who weren't believed. We believe you now. No one knew who paid for it. Briggs sat across the street, sipping weak coffee from a paper cup, watching as 2 women and a teenage boy took turns reading it. None of them knew who he was. And that was okay. The video footage never aired on the news. Not the beatings. Not the alley. Not the takedown. But the stories. They spread. Through barbershops. Corner stores. DMs. Churches. Text chains between cousins. They weren't headlines. They were whispers that stuck. One day, Briggs ran into Officer Danvers again. Plain clothes. Grocery bag in hand. They passed on a crosswalk. She didn't stop. Just said, without looking. They moved him to private security in Georgia. Briggs nodded. He'll wear a badge again. Maybe. Then I guess we keep watching. She hesitated. We. Briggs looked down the street, where a group of teens handed out flyers to unhoused men. They're learning. Danvers walked off. Back at the tire shop room, Briggs wrote one last note. Then sealed the envelope. Inside, a list of officers who turned the other way. A printout of locations no longer used for patrols. Names of those still out there, quietly protected. He addressed it to a young reporter. The only one who had called him back. That night, rain pattered lightly on the roof. Briggs sat on the edge of the mattress, boots laced, coat on. He looked older. Not broken, but changed. The kind of tired that doesn't show in headlines. He looked around once more. At the notebooks. The cracked walls. The life he'd lived in the shadows. Then he stood. And walked out into the light. He wasn't undercover anymore. But he'd never stop watching. And maybe. Just maybe. That was enough.